Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another episode of The BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, we have Haylee Romrell, who I'm very excited to have on the show. Haylee is a badass mom to 3 kiddos. I had to take a moment to ask all the ages because she has 3, so that takes a minute. 10, 8, and 5. Haylee is a nurse. She has such an amazing journey. She's going to tell us about what intrigued her to sit down with us today and, all the things that make her a badass mom. So, Haylee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with both of you.
Yay!
Nice to meet you, and happy 2025.
Yeah, you too.
A little background about Haylee. We met each other, our kiddos, now that they're getting older, I can say years ago, went to the same preschool, which was such a lovely experience. I think Haylee still has a daughter, right, that's still attending Little Riders. But we had the opportunity to meet each other, and it's been such a pleasure. Haylee is a badass. She is athletic. She's inspiring. And I love hanging out with you.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. And a quick story about that. Little Riders, when I met you there, I was like kind of nervous because we were new to the school and I didn't know any of the families. And guess who befriended me? It was Lori. Lori was
That's Lori. So you're so good at that, Lori.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Lori was immediately sought me out and invited me to something. And it's actually been so wonderful because I've been friends with these other women. And anyway, so thanks, Lori.
Yeah. That's how you were with your studio too. So yeah, when you had your fitness studio, I mean, that's why it was such a special place, because the welcoming feeling you got, you knew everybody's name, you knew their personal stories. I mean, it's just, you just have that way about you. So
yeah. I tried to remember names. I'm not the best at names, but I can always remember.
I have a funny story about that if you want to hear.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay, so really quick. So my husband just started taking improv classes. Lori, I think I told you about this because we had a comedian on the show. He's been wanting to do it for a while. So he said last night was his first class, and they went around and they had to introduce themselves, and they had to do an action, and they had to do a adjective starting with the first letter of their name. So like jazz hands, Jenny, so everybody had to do an action. So like he said he was silly Sean, and he had to do a little action or whatever. And I was like, he goes, and I looked around, there are 14 people. He goes, I looked around at the end of the night, and he goes, I remembered almost all of them. I was like, that's amazing, because that's a great trick.
Yeah.
Haylee, I'm putting you on the spot. What is your name? What do you have to have an action and
my gosh, geez. that is putting me on the spot. Let me think about, what would yours be? Let me think about mine.
Loving Lori.
Loving Lori.
We can circle back. So let's tell everybody about kind of like where you grew up, and how you currently you're a nurse, like how you got into that, and how you juggled it all, having 3 kiddos along the way.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. So being close to mountains is very like I love it. It makes my heart feel good. So being in Colorado the last 7 years has been lovely. I just feel very grateful to be on trails and outside in nature in beautiful places, and we're lucky here, I feel like. So yeah, I grew up in Salt Lake. I played soccer and basketball, and I loved sports and being active. I loved skateboarding. I keep this little skateboard at my desk just to remind me of my childlike self.
I love
it. Because I love that little girl that loved to just skateboard around the neighborhood and explore. So I loved being outside. We had this big garden, and my mom was always out there, and there was this little irrigation canal, and just playing in the dirt and walking on the mossy canal, and we had these huge willow trees. I don't know. It really I feel very grateful for that time of my life, and it stayed with me. So so Salt Lake City, graduated, went to college in Hawaii, and I studied on Oahu, studied anthropology, and loved it so much. Loved being there, and planned to study public health. But then I was telling Jenny, I met this really awesome nurse. I was working at a wilderness therapy program in Arizona after I graduated from college, and I met this great nurse. She was in her 70s, and she was hiking around in the wilderness with us and making sure the kids were all healthy and safe. And And I had a great chat with her one day, and she said, "You should look into nursing. You can work in public health. You can work in lots of places." And that sparked something in me. And then I thought, all right, well, I'll look into it. I started taking the classes, which was very different than my anthropology classes, but I really enjoyed. I loved it. I loved learning about the body and physiology and anatomy. It was just really fun, and I think that it just sparked that joy of like curiosity about the world and how it all works and how we work as humans. And so I pursued my nursing degree, and then I worked for a long time. I worked in neurotrauma and pediatrics, and then for quite a while I worked in oncology, hematology, bone marrow transplant. Worked with a lot of end of life care patients, and that was like, I don't know, that was pretty amazing. I feel like I would leave my shifts some days and think like, I don't even know how to explain what happened today. This was just kind of, I feel like I saw the spectrum of human experience, the kind of suffering that people go through, and the sadness and sorrow, the grief, the pain, but also the kind of triumph and just the connection and beauty. And I don't know, humans are kind of amazing in what we experience, right? So
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't know. That was a beautiful time, and I loved it. And then
How long did you do that? The end of life?
I worked there for 5 years, and then
Was it hospice?
So on our floor, it was an inpatient medical floor, but on our floor we had palliative care rooms, end of life care rooms. So if patients were too ill to go home on hospice, or families preferred them to be in the hospital, they would stay with us. So we got to work with those families and those patients, and that was really,
What a heart. I mean, how big is this woman's heart? I mean, to be able to, show up and give your best self to these people that are, living out their last days. I mean, I'm not sure I could walk away every day and just, I don't know, it would be heavy on me. Like, but I think you took it as a opportunity and experience, right? To really kind of, have the gratitude to spend this time with those people.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, it felt like this kind of sacred privilege, and I was like, I don't know why I am here, but I'm here right now. I'm like, I am here, and I don't. And sometimes I would be like, I don't feel like I'm the person that should be here right now. Quite honestly, I was like, there should be like some wise sage in this room, and not me, right? Like this young nurse. But I do feel grateful for those experiences, and I feel it. Yeah, it's just clarifying to be in those rooms with those families, and kind of like what we value in our time here, like what it really is, and
Did it change your perspective on your life?
That's a good question. I think it did. I think what it did, I think it opened my heart to kind of what humans are deeply experiencing in quiet ways that we don't see. Does that make sense? Like, I felt like it made me more clued in to maybe the pains or the hurts or the sorrow or the joy or the delight, like that humans are so complex and really beautiful and complicated, and sometimes we have our crappy aspects, but we also have these like, beautiful parts of ourselves. And it just was like I felt like it was like you get to see this whole picture of a person, and I don't know. And I think it definitely, for me, like what you said, Lori, there were days I left that I was like, this is heavy. This is so heavy. I can't carry this very well. I don't know that I always did it so well, but being able to talk about it with my husband, and others to a degree, right, with HIPAA, but
Right,
you can talk about so much, but therapy is useful. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I was with two friends of mine last night, and they lost their mom about not quite a year ago. Yeah, a year ago. And they were talking about like their hospice experience and her end of life. And they were like, everybody I talked to that has had somebody that was dedicated to helping the person transition has just been so grateful for those people. I mean, it's just, I think we had a hospice nurse that lived across the street, and I was like, she's an angel on earth. I mean, I really felt like that with her.
Sure.
And when she actually passed away and she was sick, and she sat all of our kids down and she answered all of their questions, and she told them all about death and what she believed. And I really think it changed all of their opinions about life and death.
Right.
And they were 10 years old.
Right. Yeah. You know what? I love that so much. I think there's I think it's shifting in our nation, but I think there's a lot of fear. It's about death and about, this transition. But I love when someone can like speak to a thing that's hard or scares us, right? When someone can honestly, with compassion, speak to that thing, it's really, really powerful. And especially death is such a part of our experience. And I mean, it happens every day. There's cycles of life and death and rebirth, and so I actually think it can be a really beautiful transition for people, with all the complexity of it. So I love that story. That's really beautiful.
Let's take a moment and step away from a heavy topic. Let's go back to Hawaii, because I want to know, when you were in Hawaii, like you were there for 1 year, 2 years. How did you end up there? You went, like, you didn't start off going to college there, or did you?
No. I couldn't afford going. I started at a community college, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Like, to all the college students and people who are like, I've got it figured out. I'm like, that's amazing. I did not. I will take a couple classes at a time, and we'll see. And slowly but surely, I kind of started to figure out, I like this. I like this class. And it was such a beautiful time to explore. And anthropology classes, history classes, an archaeology class, my sociology, those things, I was just like, I love this. This is so great. And I had great professors. And there were quite a few students from the Sudanese refugee community going to college with me, and I loved interacting with those students so much. It just was a non-traditional students. Community colleges are just an interesting place, and I really loved it. I loved it. I love the quirkiness of it, and the kind of, we're all just kind of figuring it out, and so and I found a program in North Shore of Oahu that they had an international studies program, anthropology, and I was really interested in it was kind of global health at the time, but then I realized that there's so much you can do at home, like in your own community, in terms of promoting health. And I thought, well, I like the humanitarian aspect of this program that this school has, and I'm gonna pursue it and just see how it goes. And I was able to get a scholarship, which helped me a lot, because otherwise I couldn't have lived in Hawaii. So they had a really just this beautiful anthropology program that had kind of a global health component, and that was like where my mind was. So I was like, I'm going to go for it, and that's where I went
for you.
Direction.
Would you live there again?
Yeah, Hawaii is complex, because I feel like there, it's interesting coming from being this kind of haole kid from the mainland, and there's this real true like Hawaiian families that have lived there forever, and they're being displaced. And I have this kind of, I think there's a complexity there. And I think there's this part of me that's like, I want to support people being able to live in their land and their ancestral land, and but I also feel that we live in a global world, like things change and grow and stretch, and it's hard to kind of figure out how cultures and communities can connect. So I would live there in a heartbeat. I love it. It's a beautiful place. The people were lovely and amazing. And also I would consider kind of some of those other factors. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So you come back, so you go to school, you come back, and now you're fully, nursing, right? So as we talked about, you've done all different kinds of nursing. Do you want to tell our listeners what you're currently doing regarding the health field?
So took a little pause from nursing. We moved to North Carolina for my husband's work, came back to Colorado, and I started working as a school nurse, which more specifically, I'm a direct service nurse. So, or a private duty nurse. I hang out with one little kiddo. I'm basically like, I've been with him since kindergarten. He's in 2nd grade now. And I just move with him. Like, I'm there for medical emergencies and medical needs. He's up walking, talking. He can do the other things the kids are doing, but he has some distinct medical needs that he needs a nurse for emergencies and for various reasons. And so I basically am going through elementary school again. That's
so awesome.
I'm learning right now. I was like learning the way they do math these days, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, like different, but
it's actually really good because it's the same grade that Noah's in, correct? So it's like second grade. So you're like dialed into what he's learning.
I love it. It's been such a wonderful job. I mean, fit wise, schedule. So if there's a woman out there looking for something like that will allow her to take care of her kiddos and be present for her kids as much as possible, but also work. This has been such a good fit for our family and for me for right now. I just enjoy like intimate connections where you can actually get to know a patient or a person, you know what I mean, in a way that feels like there's like a heart to heart, like I care about, you start to learn about them and care about them. And it doesn't feel like this rushed interaction where you're just like, here's your meds, I'm out the door, I have to go help the next 5 people that are suffering. So
do you go to school? Like, do you go to class?
I sit in class with him. I go with him everywhere. I'm with him all day. Wow. And his specific need is such that he will need someone with him throughout his whole life. I mean, to some degree. So, it's complex and it's great. I don't know.
I didn't even know that job existed. I love when I hear about stuff that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's really cool. And in the district, there are a handful of kids kind of with similar having similar medical needs. And so a few district service nurses here and there stay with those kids. So,
and does the district pay for that? Like, or does the family have to?
Yeah, no, the district has to pay for that. There's laws and all sorts of things in place that these kids have to be provided for. So yeah, they have to cover it. And it's neat. It's a really neat job. So if someone out there is thinking like, what am I going to do? It's an awesome
His requirements, obviously medical background, nurse, but it seems like it would be hard to get such a position or no.
Well, I mean, that's true. There are so many of those positions within a district, but I actually think if that's something that you want to do, I don't think it's like without the realm of possibility. It's not like the hardest job to get or anything in nursing.
Yeah.
There's possibilities. You can also start working as like a school nurse generally. And then if you wanted to transition and work with one kiddo, the districts are really flexible and they just want some good support for their kids. They are, if someone really wants to do it, you will find a way to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So my question is, I mean, you give so much, right? You're giving to this little guy all day long. You're giving to your kids. You're giving to your husband. How do you take time to disconnect for you, Haylee? Like, I know you're a huge hiker and I want you to tell our listeners about you've done a ton of hiking adventures, but one that stands out is the one you did in the Grand Canyon. That I'd like you to talk about, but just like, how do you disconnect to give yourself the time you need to like recharge?
Yeah, no, I think that's such a crucial piece. So a few years ago after I'd had my third Emmy, who's now 5, I was just postpartum depression. I was in it. It was so hard. And the pandemic had started. She was home. She had oxygen for months because she just had issues and was in the NICU. And it was just so much fear, right? About all of that. Don't need to go back to that time, but it was just the heaviness of that was really weighing. And slowly but surely, I kind of dug my way out of that hole. But a crucial piece was this. I was thinking about this. I was going to therapy. One thing, go to therapy. If you need support and get resources, go. Like, I just needed help. And I had thankfully a really good therapist who I think saw my situation, was like, hey, these are things maybe you can work on because you actually still matter. Even though you need to take care of this baby, you have kids, you have a spouse, it actually is important you take care of yourself. And I stuck this Post-it note. This has been on my bedside stand for like 4 years now. I don't know. And it says, prioritize yourself. Let's see. Your self-care and your body above all else. She said that to me one day. And when she said it, I needed to hear it because I wasn't prioritizing any of my wellness at all. And I heard it. When you hear something and you're like, oh, I need to do that. I know that that's true. So I took that little thing off. I was like, I still look at it almost every day. And to remind myself, I need to take care of myself. And that can be in small ways. So for me, hiking, Lori, you mentioned hiking, like being in natural spaces, noticing things in nature. I mean, like it can be the simplest thing. Like I love yucca seed pods. I think they're so beautiful. I just like little things. I don't know, little acorn hats and whatever. I don't know. It's like noticing the world. It's like Mary Oliver, you know, like she's like attributed to this for this like great line that's go live your one wild and precious life. But you know what she did all of her life? She just spent it in nature, noticing little things and just like it wasn't necessarily grand. It can be grand if that's what you want. You know what I mean? It just depends on you. But I just it's being in nature. It's hugging a freaking tree, and I'm not kidding. I have a tree.
Have you done forest bathing?
No, but I've heard about it and read about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was probably before the pandemic that we did it, but yeah. So it's been quite a few years now. But I had heard about it on a podcast, I think, and I was like, okay, we need to try this.
What is it called? Sorry.
Forest bathing.
Okay.
And they did it in Boulder. It was in Boulder, and I think it was a national, like somebody from the parks department took us through it. And it's not a hike; it's like a walk. Like there were people in flip flops, but you walk very slowly, and they encourage you to notice things about. They're like, look at the leaves on the tree. I mean, it's almost like meditative.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I haven't heard as much about it, but I think you might really like it.
Yeah, well, that sounds like something I would like for sure. Yeah.
It just sounds like something you do already, right?
I know. Like you probably don't need. You can probably take people on. You could be the guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could. Yeah. Maybe look at the tree. Now let's hug the tree.
Exactly. And we did hug a tree. Like you smell the tree. Like you do all the things.
Yeah. Well, I know it's true. I mean, like I think these plants and all these animals and all this life around us is sentient. You know what I mean? And I honestly feel like when I'm in nature, like I feel loved by it. Like I feel like it loves us and we're not lost within it. Like we're known. I don't know. There's something when I go in natural spaces, I feel known and I feel like connected. So yeah, I love that.
Did you, you said you were a wildlife. What was
I worked at a wilderness therapy program for
what is that?
Brief time after college, kind of between when I was deciding if I wanted to go to graduate school. It is, you're essentially a counselor. I just walked around in the wilderness with kids who were kids who are having behavioral psychosocial challenges and their families.
Okay.
It's kind of what, they can be complicated and they're not, you know, there's some that haven't been like the healthiest of places. Where I worked, I felt like it was a good place and good people running it. And so we'd hike around the forests of Arizona, like outside of Phoenix, a few hours. We drive and go hang out in the woods with these kids and be with them while they were. It was like camping, you know, and guiding and kids.
Like counseling in the woods, right?
Counseling in the woods. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, that's where I met Nurse Wanda, who changed my trajectory.
There you go.
Good. I really want to hear about the Grand Canyon. Lori mentioned you did a trek in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. So I did. So after I graduated from high school, I spent a summer working on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, but I was always working. So I never got to explore the Grand Canyon. I was always like in a gift shop, which I loved. It was very cool, but I didn't get to, I got to interact with all these interesting people from all over the world, but didn't get to go explore the actual thing that I was living by. So that was always kind of in my mind, like I need to come back here and explore this space. And I have bilateral hip dysplasia, which has caused some it's congenital. It's basically my hip socket, you know, is shallow anyway, which has caused some issues with movement in my life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, will I be able to do that long hike? Is that going to cause, issues? Is this going to be problematic? And I wrote it down on a list of these are things I want to do in my life. I want to hike around in the Grand Canyon. And anyway, after years of kind of rehab and getting in better place and going to physical therapists and pelvic floor therapists, I finally got to a great spot a few years ago where I could hike long distances again. And I felt so grateful for that and hiked, prepared, spent time on Green Mountain and Sanitas and up and down the Skyline Traverse, just preparing to hike the Grand Canyon. And my husband and I went, and it truly is one of the favorite things I've experienced in my life. It was so beautiful. So beautiful. Just like, it's like walking into some sacred holy cathedral, but like even beyond, but not with all like the kind of other stuff that might stress people out. They're just so beautiful. And I loved it. And it felt so good to move my body after having years of issues with movement. And what a gift.
How long did it take?
We did it in a day. We did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we did rim to rim. So we did.
Okay.
We started South Rim and we crossed the river, went to the North Rim, and we did it in a day. I want to say it took us. We started 5 a.m, finished around 2, I think.
Okay, so all right.
And that was what's the temperature like?
We went in mid-October. It was great.
Okay,
it was perfect.
Okay,
beautiful. There's potential. I think it snowed the following weekend, and you have to time it right because there's shuttles that will drive you back. But if anybody wants tips on what to do, or you want to go, let's all go.
I know. Well, and I think my daughter really wants to go. You actually remind me a little bit of her because she's, outdoorsy. Like she's worked on the river. Now she's working in Alaska. Oh, cool. She's lived in Arizona and she wants to do some guiding in the Grand Canyon. So
Benny, what was the hike she just did?
She just did the El Camino Trail.
Oh, cool.
It's from Spain she went from, she started in Portugal and in Spain. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. If you need any tips or any.
Okay.
And I was able to go back and do it again this last spring with some friends, which was fun too. Yes. We did a different kind of trail, but it was awesome. So
can the average person, like, how fit do you have to be, Haylee? Like, I mean, you're a very fast, fit hiker. Like, can the average person, like, I'm going to go hike the Grand Canyon in a day? Like, is that possible?
Yeah. Or, I think it's good to be prepared and go. It's good to be prepared. The hike out is hard. I mean, mostly you're just hiking down. As long as your joints and everything feels good, you can do that. It's just the hike out is kind of the gnarly part, but I mean, have some fitness, and don't go in the middle of the summer where people. It's scary, like what people experience. So
I don't like that. That's why I asked you about the temperature. No. I'm like, I do not like the heat, so I'm like, no, thank you. I'd much rather go in the cold.
So when I went with friends, we went in early May or mid-May, and mid-March or mid-October. Those are like great times to go. So. Yeah, it was great. It was so fun. I would do it again.
So your husband's outdoorsy too?
He is. When we met, he loved canyoneering. So we were living in Utah, and he loved to go down to Zion National Park and all the southern Utah and just rappel down all these crazy slot canyons. And that was actually one of our kind of like dates. And it was, I honestly, he was like, yeah, we're going to do this canyon with our friends. And I'm like, all right. And we ended up having to camp in a slot canyon, which is really scary because,
was it a first date?
It wasn't first date. We had known each other a little bit. But this was kind of like a big, like, we're going to go on this trip together, Yeah. And then, and we ended up having to sleep in this slot canyon, and it was a crazy adventure. And I was glad. I seriously was like, we're gonna die. There's gonna be a storm, there's gonna be a flood, and I don't know. It was.
Wasn't the slot canyon where the guy, I forgot his name, got his
Aaron Ralston?
Oh yeah. Isn't that where he got his arm?
I was thinking the same thing. Where he lost his arm.
Yes.
Got stuck.
Yeah. Same. I mean, Craig, he loves to explore and he loves backcountry skiing and mountain biking. But I will say, I'm making us sound like we're like way adventurous. Like, we are really boring. I mean, like, I love to hike around and I love to be outside and I like to read poetry and like, just like, I don't know, do my little things. And Craig, we're just busy with 3 little kids. He definitely like mellowed out in ways, but I still like to do things, to pursue things that make me joyful. So
well, and you read your sticky note every day, which reminds you that you are the most important, because if you're broken, then the whole family goes down. I feel like as a mom, we have to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of everyone else that's dependent on us, right?
It's a good reminder for your kids too, that they need to take care of themselves as they grow up. And like my mom prioritized herself, I need to prioritize myself.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I had really kind of like folded in and just lost that like little vitality spark in myself, And I had to kind of unfold and remember, oh yeah, these are things I like. Oh, this is something I want to do. And I think it's actually sometimes hard to know what you want. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but
every day, I'm like, what do I want?
Yeah. What do you want? I know that's actually a hard question for me anyway. And I think, so sometimes just like allowing yourself to ask that. And I think as women, sometimes you're taught to be small, right? And to not take up any space and just like, oh wait, no, I have a voice. Like I actually have thoughts and I have feelings and they matter. And I needed to remember all those things. And anyone going through that dark period, just I have like this compassion and I like continue to care for your needs because they matter. I don't know. Maybe somebody will hear that and it will.
Yeah. No, it's important. And it does fall by the wayside, right? Like, it was like a book I was reading and it was talking about, what are your big goals or kind of like bucket list items? Like what things do you want to do in the next, 5-10 years, whatever. And I was having a hard time. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff I want to do, but then it was asking to get really specific. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I need to be exposed to more options and then I can figure it out. But it's, there's so much out there. It's overwhelming.
Right. Well, there is. And like you were asking, Lori, what do you do? Just asking myself that question, like, what are you interested in? So I love that your husband is taking improv class. I took an acting class in this period of time of kind of like opening up again and unfolding and being like, what do I like? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
That was actually really powerful. I loved it. Or like allowing myself to take a ceramics class. Louisville Community Yoga has this really beautiful dance class on Fridays and Mondays. And it's not like you don't have, I don't dance. Like I didn't dance. I was like the sporty kid, right? But then it's just like free movement and the language is so beautiful and the facilitator. So if anybody, Louisville Community.
Let's go. Jenny just started dancing.
I started, doing Zumba. I can't claim that I'm dancing, but to your, like, again, every movement I make it's always been very intentional because I'm like, whether you're lifting weights or whether you're doing, like, you're always very like careful with like how you move your body. You have to make sure you have the right form. And in dance is so different. Like free, it's more free and like flowy. And that's not me. So I'm not good at it, but I really like it. Yeah. It's really fun.
I love that. See, I'm the same way. I am not good at it. And I feel this, I feel that kind of welling up of like fear and anxiety. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah. Well, we had this whole conversation too, because the people that are really good, they dress like they have hats on and they like dress a different way. And my friend was like, the hat helps you just stay in your zone. She's like, you got to put on the hat. Cause we were joking that we haven't graduated to hats yet.
Yeah.
She's like, no, the hat will help you. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to consider the
like
hat.
Like a baseball hat or like
like a baseball hat. Yeah.
Like a truck.
It's a very distinct style. Yeah. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Haylee, do you wear a hat when you dance?
I haven't yet, but I could.
Yeah. And this is like, it's Zumba. And I know Zumba sounds super cheesy, but man, these women are badass. There's a lot of hip hop involved. They're badass. Yeah. They're really good dancers.
They're amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm intimidated because I can't dance. So I'm like,
well, that's why I stand in the back.
Yeah.
And
how cool.
So I don't know.
How cool that you do that. But I love that. It's so neat to see women creating in their own way, like whatever it is. I like the costume because I actually think it kind of keeps you, like gets you in the
mindset. An alter ego.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
Well, like I want to go.
Dressing as a character.
Yeah. I love that. That's so great.
So Haylee, with your 3 kiddos, how are they doing getting along? I always love asking this question because they're kind of like in this age where they're still really, they're young enough, but your 10-year-old's obviously starting to approach that, what do they call it? Pre-tween, tweening, or, well, she's 10, but I feel like kids these days, they want to be older than they are.
Yeah, that's a good question. I am learning every day that I don't know what I'm doing. No, I think, well, I mean, that's true, but also just, I think they are, they're figuring each other out even as they grow and they're figuring themselves out and we're figuring ourselves out still. And then trying to like keep it all together in something that feels somewhat cohesive, I think is challenging. And there are a couple that can really push each other's buttons. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really hard when they're not getting along. I'm like, what do I do with this? How do I how do you work with this? I don't know. I've had to not like, you can kind of over-identify or be like, oh my gosh, everything's bad or wrong. Everything's falling apart. They're not getting along. And then I start to catastrophize, and I'm like, reel it back in, like take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And this is part of growing and learning. And you might fumble and you might say the wrong thing. And what can offer yourself compassion and forgiveness, offer them compassion and forgiveness. I think that's it. It's like, be kind to yourself and be kind to them, and then and try to communicate in ways. I don't know. I'm still learning. We're definitely in it.
Well, once you think you have it figured out, then things totally shift, right? Because they grow and change. And it's like, I'm going to equate it to this. They love a snack. They love a certain snack. So you go to Costco and you buy the fucking big giant box, and then all of a sudden they don't like the snack anymore. That's what it is like. That is parenting in a nutshell.
That's it. That's exactly it. You just wrote the definition. That's totally it. Yeah, so right. Oh my gosh.
Like a blink of an eye.
This is my pantry filled with Costco snacks that no one's eating. Yeah.
That you all asked for.
Costco swaps.
Yeah, we should. I know. I actually take our extra snacks to the school now because I'm like,
perfect.
Someone's got to eat these.
Well, or they want a snack because Wyatt was on a kick for a while where he wanted bear snacks. And bear snacks, if you're unfamiliar, they're like little fruit. I don't know. They kind of remind me of like a nutritious fruit roll-up, but they came with a card, right? This was like a year ago or 2 years ago. I don't remember. But they came with different like animal cards. So here he came home one day. He's like, I love bear snacks. Can I buy, can you buy bear snacks? And they are expensive. And I was like, well, okay, they're all natural like fruit snacks. Yeah. I get them. And then I find out he's literally throwing the fruit snacks away and just trading his cards. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, I don't buy those anymore. Yeah. But anyway.
That's funny. Lori, we had the same thing. That happened to us too. Yeah. I know.
The same food?
The same snack. I know what she's talking about. Yeah.
And then it's kind of like that flavor, if I bought a different flavor, then it would have like different cards in it.
Oh yeah. He's playing you big time.
Yeah.
I got played for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
So Haylee, looking at where you are in life right now, you've accomplished so many wonderful things. What do you have that you're looking forward to?
Don't ask her what she wants.
Not asking. Not what you want, but what you're excited for, or a goal, or something that you want to accomplish. Because I feel like, you're kind of like me in a lot of senses. Like you're goal driven in the sense of like exploring and having the experiences of going and doing. Is there something on tap you're looking forward to?
Yeah, no, this is a great question. So it's interesting. I think a lot about going back to school. I mean, I hate to even say that because if I'm not doing it, I'm like, well, I'll let you know when I do it, if I do it, but I think I'm in this place in my life where I just want to be open-hearted and allow myself to be curious and ask questions. I feel curious about the world and I like that feeling. So I'm like, that's a good energy. I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I'm like, I want to just go hide in my bed, and like cover my head and not get out. Yeah. Because I'm done. But I think it's this feeling of allowing myself to feel curious about the world. And that has led me to really, really wonderful books. I mean, it's just like different authors and different poets that I'm just have like been such a strength and comfort to me. Allowing myself to take classes that I'm interested in. Just follow your curiosity, see where that leads next. Reaching out to a friend and saying, hey, do you want to do this thing? What does that spark? You know what I mean? What comes from that? Going to that dance class, going to Zumba, whatever it may be, it's just kind of allowing myself to continue to explore the world and engage with it in ways that feel interesting to me and generative and creative, but I'm like, why not? Just try that thing that you were afraid to try once, or don't, sit in your house and write in your journal or knit or whatever. Just like, if that brings you joy, do that too. Yeah. But I think it's an allowance to explore because I don't think I've always done that for myself, allowed myself to kind of engage with the world in a way that I want. The world is really beautiful.
Did you read, we've talked about this on the show before, but did you read the book Big Magic?
Yes. Yeah.
So much of what you're saying reminds me of that. She's like, just follow your curiosity, curiosity. And it's funny because when I always was like following my curiosity, I'd try this and try that. I stuck with soccer for a while, but most things I quit after a short period of time. And my parents were like, you don't stick with anything. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of done with that. I'm moving on to this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right. Why not?
And that's okay, right? I mean, I think that your curiosity constantly changes. And, we're at a point in our lives where you just have to kind of lean into where it is next.
Right.
And that's okay if that means kind of switching paths and changing gears and just completely, going from a dance class to, playing hockey to, whatever it is.
Right. And
and from your work, life is short, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's not serving you anymore, move on to something different.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, and if you guys heard Martha Beck, you probably, I've listened to her like a time, off and on throughout the years.
Wayfinder.
Yeah.
Is she the
She's the Wayfinder gal, but she recently was on a podcast, and where did I put that? I think I wrote a note because I was like, I really liked what she said. She said, I thought I'd share it because she said, enlightenment always tastes of freedom. Like when you feel that freedom in yourself, when you do something that you're like, oh, this makes me feel a little more free, continue to do that thing. And then, she said, say this to yourself, at no time am I ever required to do more than I can do in peace. Like if it's stretching you in a way that doesn't feel right, you don't need to do it. And she's like, know what you really know, feel what you really feel, say what you really mean, and do what you really actually want to do.
Oh, I love that.
She's awesome. I love her.
Yeah. I think those are the things that are like cycling around in my mind, and just allowing kind of myself to notice what I notice. And when I was thinking about your podcast, you're like this badass moms, I was just writing a couple notes. But I was thinking of a badass mom as like someone who seems to be able to offer presence. They seem free in themselves in a way. Maybe this is just a badass woman, but just anyone really. They're clear. There's like a clarity in the way that they see the world. They're clear about their own kind of heart and desires. Bold, courageous. Often there can be a quiet strength. Thoughtful, aware. They notice things. They notice others. They're curious, open-hearted. Ask questions. Take up space. Explore. Experiment. Engage. Play. And nurture themselves and others, and whatever. Maybe these are things I want to be.
I love that.
Maybe I'm just writing the things that I hope I can achieve somehow. But I also think this is the other thought I had. Sorry, bear with me. But you asked the question, what does it mean to be a badass mom? And I just thought a badass mom is a mom who is being who she uniquely is. Listening to her own heart, spirit, soul, and autonomous voice, self-authoring her life, taking responsibility for her own life in a way that feels true to her. Like what feels good to you. You don't need to do it like that mom or your mom even, unless that feels good.
Well, thank you for saying that, because those words, just hearing you say that, I think every woman listening it resonates with how they feel, or like you said, things that they envision themselves becoming, or I mean, all of those things I think just constantly are swirling around every woman's head, right? Like, what have we done? What am I? What can I be? And I think just it's refreshing to constantly kind of hear those words, because ultimately every woman, every mom is truly just badass because we're navigating it all.
No, exactly right. There's a lot of pressure to be certain ways, in our world. There's a lot of cultural expectation in our own families of origin, whatever it could be, religious community, neighborhood. But you have your own kind of way, and it's beautiful, and it's needed, So whatever feels true to you, do that.
I love it. Yeah.
So just one final question. What are you most proud of?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think I am most proud of the fact that I actually do really desire to learn about the world and learn about the people around me. I think it's the curiosity thing. It's like I'm genuinely like, oh no, I want to know about, like, what do you like? What are you interested? I like to be in the world. I want to know how something works. I want to know kind of why that plant looks that way, or why, this social interaction between my kids is this way, or why am I, sometimes I probably think about it too much, where I get it's too much. But I think it's just a true desire to know the world and as it unfolds and learn new things. And hopefully I have the open heart to say, like, if that to be proved wrong, or like challenge my own assumptions, right? Or because I make lots of assumptions. And so I hope it's to be someone who's constantly seeking to learn and, I don't know, learn new things and change my own opinions. And I hope that I guess that's what I hope for. I don't know if I haven't achieved that. I will say I don't know if I've achieved really anything, but I just am like, I'm interested in the world.
I love it. I love it. I think you have to be, though. I think it sparks so much curiosity. I think is that a happy place, right? Because it's an unknown place where you want to continue to, investigate and find out. And I think it has a lot of fun in it too.
And you're talking about, I mean, it's like a journey, a lifelong journey. So to say, well, I haven't done that yet. Yeah, none of us have done that yet. Like, I feel like if you've done that, then your time on this earth is done.
Yeah, right.
Like you're talking about, that's why we're here for as long as we are, so we can do all those things.
And I definitely still feel like my therapist calls it middle essence, like kind of like adolescence, right? But like it's like this, I feel like I'm a kid almost in some ways, like a teenager that's like, I'm still learning.
And we see things differently now in middle essence, not middle age, right? Like, I feel like you now have some life experience, but yet, you view it differently than you do as a child, but you still have that curiosity and that desire to just go and learn and love and explore. So I love it all.
Yeah. You go from like being a kid and having all that curiosity to then you go through this phase where you feel like you know it all, right? Like I know everything. And then you kind of unpack all that and you're like, I really don't know anything. And I'm like, want to learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. No, it's
full circle.
Yeah. And then it's like, even if it's like, well, I don't know anything and I can still have convictions about this, that can be changed. Yeah. It's like all workable. It's so, it's interesting.
It's life and it's lovely. Haylee, thank you so much for giving us your time today. It has been such a pleasure to, learn more about you. And I feel like I want to go outside right now, although it's freezing in Colorado. Go for a hike and hug a tree. Like, I feel like that's what I need right now.
That's my message. Just go hug a tree.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you again for joining us. And we're excited to see, what the future holds.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on here. And I think it's really beautiful. I think what you two are doing is creating a space. It's like, it matters, it matters to give women voice and discourse and create that generative energy that then someone else hears and something sparked. And I think it matters. So I really appreciate what you're creating too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.